Step 4 is looking at your dates. So here we have a column of dates, and you can see that the first section of the dates have the month, a hyphen the day, a hyphen and the year, whereas the rest of it has the year, a hyphen, a month, a hyphen, and the day. So dealing with dates is one of the trickier parts of data cleaning and data auditing. To be frank, the best way to deal with dates is to find somebody who can program in either R or Python or similar kind of programming language and have them fix the dates for you. It's usually the quickest and easiest. However, if you really want to do it on your own, there is the format function in Excel, which can handle certain kinds of dates. This is often very frustrating and time consuming, but if you really want to become a ninja in Excel dates, that is possible. And to be frank, since this is a hands-on class, since the dates that are different, what you need is all the dates to be in the same format so that you can work with them as a unit. In this case, we have only 7 or 8 dates that are different, and what I would actually do in this case, to be frank, is to change them by hand. Now, anytime you're going to change anything by hand, it's really important that you keep the original. So I'm going to copy the date column, and I'm going to insert the date column again, and I'm going to create a new variable called date cleaned. And so we have date and date cleaned. So if you mess up cleaning it by hand, you will be able to go back and fix it. And then I'm just going to take each of these dates and switch it around so that it is in the same order. Oops, here we go, 5/20. So, I see. So this is actually a formatting issue in Excel. This is not the way the dates have been entered. This is a formatting issue in Excel. So I will go back and see if I can use, in fact, Excel to correct the way I want. Good, that probably works. We'll see. Great. So even then you can see that date cleaning takes some time and just takes trying different things, and it's always good to copy the column of dates into a new column so that as you're kind of trying different methods of getting your dates all to be the same format and the format that you want, you won't lose valuable information. So that is step 4. Step 5 is very important, figuring out how missing data is labeled. Now, we've already talked about this, the importance of missing data. And in order to understand the importance of missing data, you need to know what parts of your data is missing. So we're going to use the length of marriage here, this column here. And you can see that it is recorded in years and that there are some NAs in the length of marriage. However, the column right beside length of marriage is bride price. Yes or no. So a 1 is yes and a 2 is no in this case. And you can see right here when they have length of marriage labeled as NA, the bride price is 1, which means yes, and the bride price quantity is 1,500. So that means that this household is in fact married. So that NA means missing. It does not mean not applicable because it is applicable. There is a marriage. So what you want to do is you want to go through each variable and check how the missing data is labeled. And you cannot assume that just because it's NA here, that it's in NA in all the other variables. That's not always the case. You do need to check each column and see how the missing variables are labeled, and then you do need to change it to something consistent. My strong recommendation is that you change missing data to nulls. The easiest way to do this in Excel is to use the edit function, the find and replace, and we want it to find NAs, we want it to match the cases, and in find entire cells only, and we want to replace it with null. You can also use # null or hashtag null, and it will find it. It will replace it, and I in fact want it to replace them all. It tells me how many it's replaced, which is very nice. So now all the missing data in my length of marriage variable has been changed from NA to null, because we can see in fact that they were using NA in that case to represent the missing data. Okay, now that we've dealt with the missing data, what are we going to do for the not applicable data? How are we going to make sure that they are different? So if we look here in the bride price example, bride price quantity. So this is the amount of money that was paid in the bride price. And you can see we have some of the cells have numbers, some of the cells are blank, some of the cells have NA, some of the cells are blank, numbers. So we want to make sure that every cell that has a number in it is counted as a number. So we will change it to a number with 2 decimal places to make sure that we know it's a number. Now we need to figure out how the missing data and how the not applicable data is labeled and change them into 2 consistently different things. So here we have an NA, and that looks like it is standing for not applicable, because in the bride price we can see 2. No, there was no bride price, so this NA is actually accurate. However, this blank is also beside a 2 for bride price, so this blank is standing for NA. So here we have NA standing for not applicable and blank standing for not applicable. Here, however, we have, yes, a bride price was paid, but there's a blank. So this blank is not standing for not applicable. This blank is standing for missing. So we can put an NA here to replace this blank because it's not applicable. But we don't want to use find and replace to replace all the blanks with NAs, because this blank right here does not stand for NA. This blank actually stands for missing, because a bride price was paid. This blank stands for missing. So again, there's a couple of options. You can find somebody who does some programming or do a little bit of fancy Excel calculation. However, this data set only has about 80 respondents, so it would not be a terrible idea to go through and do this by hand. In terms of reproducible research, it's a terrible idea to do by hand. But in terms of getting to know your data and understanding what is in each of these cells, doing it by hand can be very useful. So this 2 here this blank here is an NA because there's a 2 here. This blank here is also an NA. So you can see that most of these blanks are NAs, but most is not good enough in data analysis. You actually, because here's another blank beside a 1, this one's a null. So you need to go through each of your columns and figure out how missing data and how not applicable data is labeled, and develop a code that is consistent across the variable and across your data set. And my strong recommendation is use null for missing data and use NA for not applicable data. Okay, speaking of consistency, the next step is making sure that your string are spelled consistently. Now, strings, we mentioned, is a fancy way to say words. So make sure that the words are spelled consistently. Here in this column, we have the village that the person lives in. And we can see that these are names. And with almost any name, consistency of spelling is always an issue. So there's a couple of ways. You can either sort your data so that the sort by, yes, my list has headers, and I want to sort by the village, and I want to sort it alphabetically. So now my village column is sorted alphabetically, and I can see that there are slight differences in the way that the village names are spelled. So you can see that this word here has an E and this here has an I. And my hunch is that that is the same village. Actually, I know for sure from working on the ground that that is the same village. But if you don't know for sure, you should check and find out what the correct spelling is and that they are all the same village. And then go back and again use the find and replace to change it all to the correct spelling. Another way, and if you don't want to sort, you can, it's very nice to use pivot tables in Excel. How you get exactly to your pivot tables depends on what version of Excel you have, but pivot tables is a very commonly used feature in Excel, which will summarize a column of data for you. There are lots of online tutorials, and we can see in the summary that, again, this, and this, and this, these four spellings of this village name look like they may be the same village. So step one is to realize that you have likely four different spellings for the same village. And step two is to figure out which is the right spelling. And then step three is to use the find and replace function in Excel to replace it with the one you want. This is not the only example. These two villages are also the same village, and these two villages are also the same village. These two villages are also the same village with one set of enumerators, simply adding on the word village. So you need to make sure that you collapse slight variations in spelling so that your rows and your tables and your analysis looks correct.